Do you ever have one of those nights that splits your life in half the before and the after? For me, it was a Thursday, cold enough that the breath hung in the air like smoke. The kind of night where nothing feels right even before you know why. I was driving home from work, half tuned into some old Springsteen song on the radio, when I saw the lights, flashing red and blue, cutting through the darkness at the end of my street. My gut dropped before I even turned the corner. The closer I got, the clearer it became. 2 cop cars, an ambulance, and a crowd forming near my driveway. My driveway. I slammed the brakes, jumped out, heart pounding in my throat. "What's going on?" I shouted, pushing through the people. A cop stepped forward, hand out. "Sir, you can't—" Then he stopped, recognized me, and his tone shifted. "Mr. Walker, you might want to take a breath." But I couldn't. I pushed past him and froze. There she was, my wife Emily, sitting on the front steps, wrapped in a blanket, shaking, her eyes wide and empty. A paramedic knelt beside her, murmuring something, but she wasn't listening. Her hands were covered in blood. My first thought wasn't fear, it was denial. "Emily," I said, kneeling beside her. "What happened?" She blinked like she was waking up from a nightmare. "It's not my fault," she whispered. "He came at me." My stomach turned to stone. "Who?" I asked. The paramedic looked at me, then over his shoulder toward the open door. That's when I saw the body. A man sprawled out in our living room, motionless, a crimson pool spreading beneath him. I didn't recognize him, but I could tell from the way the cops moved around him that this wasn't some break-in gone wrong. Something deeper was brewing. And as they cuffed my wife's shaking hands, I realized this wasn't just the night everything changed. It was the night I stopped knowing who my wife really was. The rest of that night played out like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. The flashing lights painted everything red and blue. The air smelled like metal and rain, and every time I blinked, I saw Emily's face, blank, pale, distant. They put her in the back of the squad car while I stood there on the lawn, frozen. "Sir, we'll need you to come in for questioning," one of the officers said, his tone calm but firm. I nodded numbly and followed them to the station, my mind running in circles. They made me sit in a cold room with grey walls and a buzzing light overhead, the kind that makes every second feel heavier. Finally, a detective came in, a tall guy in his 50s, with tired eyes and a coffee stain on his shirt. "Mr. Walker," he said, pulling out a file, "I'm Detective Harlan. I need you to tell me everything you know about the man found in your home." "I don't know him," I said quickly. "I've never seen him before." He watched me for a long moment, then opened a folder and slid a photo across the table. My stomach twisted. The man lying on the floor in that picture, same face, same blood, looked vaguely familiar, like someone I'd seen once but couldn't place. "You sure about that?" Harlan asked. I hesitated. I think I've seen him somewhere. Maybe around town." He scribbled something down. "His name's Jacob Reed. Does that ring a bell?" It didn't, not at first. But as the name rolled around in my head, something clicked. Emily had mentioned a Jacob once, months ago. Someone she worked with before she quit her marketing job. I'd never met him, but I remembered the way her voice softened when she said his name. The detective leaned forward. "Mr. Walker, your wife claims he broke in, that she acted in self-defense, but there's no sign of forced entry." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "So what are you saying?" I asked. He studied my face. "I'm saying your wife knew this man, and from what we can tell, he didn't come there to rob you. He came to talk to her." I stared at the photo again, the reality sinking in like poison. My wife hadn't shot a stranger. She'd shot someone she knew. Maybe someone she cared about. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photo on the table, the man's face, The blood, the way Emily whispered. He came at me, like she was trying to convince herself more than me. Jacob Reed. That name wouldn't stop echoing in my head. I sat in my truck outside the station until sunrise, waiting for them to release her. But they didn't. They said she'd be held until her hearing. I went home to a house that didn't feel like mine anymore. The yellow crime scene tape fluttered in the wind, and inside everything reeked of bleach and tragedy. There were smudges on the floor where the blood had been cleaned, a coffee cup still half full on the counter, and her phone left behind on the couch. I picked it up, stared at the lock screen, a photo of us from last year smiling, looking like the kind of couple that had it all together. What a damn lie. I charged the phone, sat at the kitchen table and waited for it to turn on. When it did, I opened her messages. Most were normal. Work chats, grocery lists, her friend Sarah sending memes. But then I saw it. Jacob R. I hesitated before tapping it open, but I had to know. The thread went back months, hundreds of messages. It started friendly, casual. Hope you're doing okay. Miss working with you. But then it turned personal. Too personal. Things like, I can't stop thinking about that night, and he doesn't understand you like I do. My stomach twisted. I scrolled faster, heart pounding, until I reached the last message, sent just hours before the shooting. It was from Jacob. I'm coming over. We need to talk. You owe me that much. I dropped the phone like it burned. The words blurred in my head, my mind spinning between anger and disbelief. She hadn't told me the truth. She hadn't told the cops the truth. I looked around the house, their meeting place, their secret, and felt something inside me snap. If Jacob had come to talk, then maybe he hadn't come to hurt her. Which meant if she'd pulled that trigger, maybe it wasn't self-defense at all. The next morning, I woke up still holding her phone, my eyes burning from a night without sleep. I kept staring at that last message, reading it over and over like maybe it would change if I just looked hard enough. I'm coming over. You owe me that much. The words felt like a threat and a plea all at once. I needed answers. And I knew I wasn't getting them from the cops or from Emily, so I drove to the one place she'd never expect me to go, her old office. The building was smaller than I remembered, tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop, the kind of place you'd drive past 100 times without noticing. I walked in and found the receptionist, a young woman tapping away at her computer. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual. My wife used to work here, Emily Walker. She nodded slowly. Yeah, I remember her. She left kind of suddenly last year. Do you know a Jacob Reed? I asked. Her eyes flickered with something, hesitation, maybe guilt. Jacob? Yeah, he worked here too. He and Emily were close. The pause before that last word hit harder than any punch. Close how? I asked. She looked uncomfortable. You should probably talk to HR. But she didn't have to say it. I could already read it in her face. I left before she could ask me more. Outside, I sat in my truck trying to breathe. The puzzle pieces were fitting together, but they painted an ugly picture. I called Sarah, Emily's best friend, and when she picked up, her voice trembled. Dan, please tell me this isn't about Jacob. My chest tightened. You knew? There was a long silence. It wasn't what you think, she said finally. Emily made a mistake, but she ended it months ago. Jacob didn't take it well. He kept showing up, calling, sending messages. He was obsessed. I leaned back, rubbing my temples. Obsessed enough to break in? He said he would if she didn't talk to him, Sarah whispered. He said she owed him closure. I felt a cold chill creep up my spine. Maybe Emily had acted in self-defense, but if that was true, why had she lied to me about knowing him? Why hide something that could clear her name? My thoughts were spinning when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it and froze. It was a photo of Emily in her holding cell, looking terrified. And beneath it, just 3 words, "She's not safe." That photo stopped my heart cold. Emily sitting in a corner of her cell. Her hair a mess, eyes red like she'd been crying for hours. Whoever sent that message had access the public couldn't have. I stared at the words. "She's not safe." For a second, I thought it was some sick prank. Then another message popped up. "Don't trust the police. Meet me at the diner on 8th noon." I looked at the timestamp. It was 10:47 a.m. I didn't think twice. I threw on a jacket, grabbed my keys, and drove. The diner was an old one, the kind with sticky booths and coffee that tasted like burnt toast. I walked in, scanning the place. Only a few people there. An old couple, a trucker, and a guy in a faded hoodie sitting by the window. He looked up when I came in, like he'd been waiting. "Dan Walker?" he asked quietly. I hesitated. "Who's asking?" He motioned for me to sit. "Name's Chris. I used to work with Jacob." That hit like a punch to the gut. "You sent those texts?" He nodded. "I didn't know how else to reach you." "You need to listen to me. Emily's not safe in there." I leaned forward, keeping my voice low. "Safe from who?" He glanced around before answering. Jacob wasn't working alone. My stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" Chris rubbed a hand over his face. "Look, Jacob had debts, bad ones. He got involved with people who use others to settle what they're owed. When he died, they lost a lot of money, and now they want payback." I sat there in stunned silence. "You're saying someone's targeting my wife because of him?" He nodded slowly. "She's a loose end. And they think she knows where the money went." "What money?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. He sighed. "Jacob was laundering cash through fake clients. If he hid anything, it's under her name. Which means they'll come after her to get it." I felt my hands shaking. "Why are you telling me this?" Chris looked me dead in the eyes. "Because I tried to walk away from them once. It doesn't work. If you want her alive, you'll get her. Out before they do." He stood up and slid a small flash drive across the table. "Everything I could find." "Don't call me again." Then he walked out, leaving me alone with a half-empty cup of coffee, 1,000 questions, and the feeling that the real nightmare had just begun. I didn't go straight home after the diner. My hands were still shaking as I drove around aimlessly, trying to wrap my head around what Chris had said. Jacob laundering money? Emily being used as a cover? It sounded insane, like some crime show plot, but something in his eyes told me he wasn't lying. I finally pulled into an empty parking lot, opened my laptop, and plugged in the flash drive. It whirred to life, and a folder popped up labeled Read Accounts. Inside were spreadsheets, scanned receipts, fake client contracts, stuff I didn't fully understand but knew wasn't clean. Each file had initials next to it, coded transactions, offshore names. One column caught my attention, E.W. Emily Walker. My heart sank. Every fake payment under that tag was routed through her old company's database. Dating back more than a year, Jacob had been using her name to move money. Whether she knew or not, she was now tied to it. I scrolled further and found something worse, a note buried in a text file. "If anything happens, she knows where it is." I froze. It, the money. The missing link everyone seemed to be after. I tried to call Chris, but his number was disconnected already. Figures. I sat there for a while, just staring at the screen, wondering if Emily had any idea what kind of storm she was in. Then I noticed another file, hidden behind layers of encryption. It was a video. I clicked play. The camera was shaky, like it had been recorded secretly. It showed Jacob sitting at a bar, talking to someone just out of frame. His voice was low but clear. "She doesn't know yet," he said. "Once she finds out, it'll be too late." My pulse quickened. "Who's he talking about?" I whispered to myself. The camera shifted slightly, and the other person came into view, and my blood went cold. It wasn't a stranger. It was Emily. She looked nervous, scared even. Jacob leaned closer, his voice turning sharp. "If I go down, you're coming with me." The screen froze there. Her face caught mid-fear. I slammed the laptop shut, my heart racing. None of this made sense. Why would she meet him if she was afraid? Was she involved or was she trapped? I didn't know what scared me more, the thought that my wife might be guilty, or the possibility that someone else was pulling her strings even now. And if Chris was right, those people weren't done yet. I didn't wait another minute. I drove straight to the county jail, the flash drive burning a hole in my pocket like a live wire. The whole way there I kept replaying that video in my head. Jacob's smirk, Emily's terrified face, his words like poison. "If I go down, you're coming with me." I needed answers, and she was the only one who could give them. The officer at the desk checked me in, led me to a visitation booth, and told me I had 15 minutes. The room was cold, sterile, buzzing with fluorescent lights. When Emily walked in, I barely recognized her. Her hair was messy, her eyes sunken like she hadn't slept in days. She picked up the phone, her hands trembling. "Dan," she whispered, voice cracking, "you shouldn't be here." "Yeah, well," I didn't have much of a choice, I said, trying to keep my anger in check. "We need to talk about Jacob." She flinched at the name, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I told them everything," she said softly. He came at me. I was scared. I leaned closer, my voice low and hard. "Cut the crap, Emily. I saw the messages." "I saw the video." Her eyes widened. "What video?" I pulled out my phone, held it up to the glass with the paused image of her, sitting beside Jacob. "You want to tell me why you were meeting the guy? You claim broke into our house?" For a second, she didn't speak. Then tears filled her eyes. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I was trying to fix it. Jacob, he wasn't supposed to die." My chest tightened. "Fix what, Emily?" "What did you do?" She shook her head frantically. "It's not just about him. He worked for someone dangerous. He said if I didn't help move the money, they'd come after you." My blood ran cold. "Me?" She nodded, sobbing now. "I was trying to protect you. Dan, I thought if I just did what they wanted, it would end." I sat back, trying to process it. "Who are they?" She hesitated, biting her lip like saying the name might summon a ghost. "His name's Victor Hale," she said finally. "He runs a company called Hale Investments, but it's just a front. He launders money for the kind of people you don't cross." The name hit me like a gunshot. Victor Hale, I knew that name. Everyone in town did. He wasn't just some criminal. He was one of the city's biggest donors, the guy who shook hands with mayors and sponsored charity galas. I stared at her through the glass, my voice barely a whisper. "You're telling me the man who runs half this city is the one who's after you?" She nodded, terrified. "Not just me," she said. "He's after you too, because he thinks you have what Jacob was hiding." Victor Hale. Just hearing that name made my stomach twist. The guy wasn't some shadowy figure hiding in the dark. He was everywhere. Billboards, charity events, city council dinners. Hale had shaken his hand once at a fundraiser 2 years ago. Back then, I thought he was just another self-made billionaire who liked to be seen doing good. But now, knowing what Emily had told me, his smile from that night burned in my memory like a brand. I left the jail shaking, my head spinning. If Hale was really behind this, then Jacob's death wasn't random, it was cleanup. And if he thought I had what Jacob was hiding, that meant I was next. I went home, locked every door, and pulled out the flash drive again. Maybe there was something in there Hale didn't want anyone to see. I combed through the files, line by line, but most of it looked like junk, coded invoices, fake company names, encrypted numbers. Then I noticed a folder buried deep in the drive's root, titled H Projects. I opened it, expecting more spreadsheets, but instead there were photos, dozens of them. Pictures of buildings, docks, warehouses, private jets, all properties tied to Hale Investments. Some had timestamps from just days ago. I clicked one taken at the Old Harbor District and froze. Standing near a black SUV in the corner of the frame was Hale himself, talking to another man whose face was half hidden. But even from that angle, I recognized him. It was Chris, the same guy who'd met me at the diner. My chest tightened. My mind started spinning. Either Chris was working both sides, or he was being watched the whole time. I zoomed in, trying to make sense of it, when I noticed a watermark on the corner of the image. Internal security feed, Hale. Investments. The realization hit me like ice water. These weren't Jacob's photos. They belonged to Hale's own system, which meant whoever gave Chris that flash drive had stolen it, and now that I had it, I was sitting on stolen property from a man powerful enough to erase people. I backed away from the laptop, my heart pounding. My phone buzzed on the table. No caller ID, I answered cautiously. A deep voice came through, calm but cold. "Mr. Walker," it said, "you have something that belongs to me." I froze, gripping the phone tight. "Who is this?" The voice chuckled softly. "Let's not play games. You know exactly who I am." For a moment I couldn't breathe. The sound of his voice, smooth, confident, like a man used to owning every room he walked into, sent a chill crawling up my spine. "Victor Hale," I whispered before I could stop myself. He let out a small laugh, low and amused. "Good. Saves me the introduction." My hand tightened around the phone. "What do you want?" "What's mine?" he said simply. "The drive Jacob stole from me. It contains sensitive material, things that were never meant to leave my network." "And you think I have it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't think, Mr. Walker, I know." My mouth went dry. He paused, letting the silence stretch long enough to make my pulse hammer in my ears. "Now, I'm not an unreasonable man," he continued. "You bring me what's mine, and this entire unfortunate situation disappears. No police, no press, no one breathing down your neck. You and your wife go back to your quiet little life. Simple." "And if I say no?" I asked. His tone shifted, colder than ice. "Then I'll make sure your wife's next court appearance is her last." "You think she's safe in custody?" "You have no idea how deep my reach goes." My stomach turned. "Shall you touch her, and I swear—" "You'll what?" He interrupted, voice dripping with amusement. "I admire your loyalty, truly. But you're out of your depth here. Dan, you're a man with a job, a mortgage and a dying marriage. I'm a man who owns everything. Around you, including your safety." The line went quiet for a beat, before he added, "You have 48 hours. Then the call cut. I just sat there, staring at my reflection in the dark phone screen, my heartbeat thudding like a drum. 48 hours. To hand over something I barely understood, or lose everything I had left. I wanted to call the cops, tell them everything, but what good would that do? Hale wasn't bluffing. If what Emily said was true, his people could reach inside that jail as easily as they reached my phone. My head was spinning when I heard a noise outside. Gravel crunching. A shadow moving past the window. I froze, listening. Another step. Then another. Slowly, I reached for the flashlight in my drawer and crept toward the window. When I pulled the curtain aside, the beam caught something. A single envelope taped to the glass. I opened the window with trembling hands and grabbed it. Inside was a photo of Emily, asleep in her cell. On the back, written in neat, perfect handwriting, were 3 words that made my blood run cold. Time's running out. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every sound that night felt amplified. The hum of the fridge, the ticking of the clock, the faint rustle of wind against the windows. Each tick felt like a countdown. 48 hours. I sat at the kitchen table staring at that photo of Emily, wondering how the hell I'd gotten here. A week ago, my biggest problem was missing a mortgage payment. Now I was in a war with a man who probably had cops, judges, and half the city in his pocket. I needed help, but not from the police. Not from anyone Hale could buy. That's when a name popped into my head. Marcus Rayburn. We'd gone to school together. Lost touch after he joined the FBI's cybercrime division out in D.C. He was the kind of guy who didn't just follow rules, he wrote them. If anyone could help me untangle what was on that flash drive, it was him. I found his number buried in my contacts and hit call. It rang 6 times before he answered. "Dan Walker?" he said, groggy but alert. "So haven't heard that name in a while." "Yeah, it's been a minute," I said. "Listen, I need your help. And it's bad." The change in his tone was instant. "How bad?" "Like, billionaire criminal might kill my wife." "Bad." I explained everything. "Jacob." "Emily, the drive, the threats." He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, there was silence on the line. Then he said, "You still have the drive?" "Yeah. Don't move. I'm on a flight tonight." For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of relief. Someone was in my corner. I hid the flash drive inside a hollow light fixture in my garage, old trick from when I used to stash emergency cash, and spent the rest of the night pacing. By morning, Marcus texted, "Landing at noon. Don't do anything stupid till I get there." I almost laughed. Too late for that. Around 11:30, I heard a car pull up outside. I peeked through the blinds expecting Marcus, but it wasn't him. A black sedan, tinted windows, the same model I'd seen in those surveillance photos. My heart slammed against my ribs. The driver stepped out, tall, wearing a dark coat. He reached into his pocket, and for a second, I thought about bolting, but then he held up something that made me stop cold. My wife's wedding ring. He placed it gently on my doorstep, looked right into the camera of my doorbell and smiled. Then he said something I'll never forget. 3 quiet words before getting back in the car. 40 hours left. By the time Marcus's flight landed, my nerves were shot. Every shadow outside looked like a threat. Every passing car like someone keeping tabs. When his rental finally pulled into my driveway, I damn near ran to the door. He looked exactly the same. Broad shoulders, sharp eyes. That steady calm that made you feel like things might be okay again. But the second he stepped inside, that calm vanished. He saw the ring on the table, the one Hale's man left. "Jesus, Dan," he muttered, rubbing a hand over his face. "This is worse than I thought." We didn't waste time. He pulled out his laptop, plugged in the flash drive, and got to work. "So you said this came from one of Hale's guys?" he asked. "Yeah, Chris claimed he worked with Jacob." Marcus frowned. "That might check out. Hale's been on our radar for a while, but we could never get evidence to stick. If what's on here connects him to offshore laundering, we're talking federal prison. Time?" He started decrypting files faster than I could follow. Lines of code flying down the screen. After a few minutes, he stopped, eyes narrowing. "Got something." He clicked open a file labeled Project Phoenix. It wasn't numbers this time, it was a video. Hale standing in front of a private jet, shaking hands with a man in uniform. "Who's that?" I asked. Marcus leaned in. "That's General Ortega. He's wanted in 3 countries for arms trafficking. If this footage is real, Hale's been selling weapons under the table. My stomach dropped. You're kidding. I wish I was. He paused, scanning through frames. These timestamps line up with Jacob's last messages to Emily. He was trying to leak this before. Hale shut him down. And now Hale thinks I have it, I said. Exactly. Marcus unplugged the drive, tucked it into his pocket. We need to make copies and move fast. Once he realizes you've got help, he'll double down. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Marcus gestured for me not to answer, but I did anyway. A woman's voice came through this time, steady, deliberate. Mr. Walker, this is Special Agent Reyes. You and your friend are in danger. We've been tracking Hale's network for months. Marcus froze. Reyes? He mouthed. She's legit, I whispered. He nodded slowly, confused. The voice continued, We intercepted a transmission. Hale's men are moving on your location. You need to leave now. My blood ran cold. How much time do we have? A pause, then she said quietly, None, they're already there. The words barely left her mouth before I heard it. Tires screeching outside. The sharp crunch of gravel under heavy boots. Marcus lunged toward the window, pulled the curtain back just enough to peek. We've got company, he hissed. My pulse spiked. I grabbed the flash drive off the table, shoving it into my pocket. How many? At least 3, he said. Maybe 4. Then the first gunshot tore through the air, shattering the front window in a spray of glass. We hit the floor. Jesus Christ, I yelled, crawling behind the kitchen counter. Marcus pulled his weapon back, small, black, efficient, and motioned for me to stay low. They're not here to talk, he said. I could hear the crunch of footsteps outside, then the front door rattling as someone kicked it in. Down! Marcus shouted, firing once. A thud followed, someone hitting the porch hard. My hands were shaking, adrenaline pumping so fast I could barely think. I crawled toward the back door, but before I reached it, a shadow moved in the hallway. A man in a ski mask, rifle raised. For a split second our eyes met, and then Marcus tackled him from behind. The gun went off, splintering the wall above me. They struggled, fists flying, the sound of grunts and broken furniture filling the room. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a heavy lamp, and swung. It connected with the guy's head, and he went down cold. Marcus was breathing hard, blood dripping from a cut above his eyebrow. We gotta move, he said. Now. We bolted out the back door, sprinting through the yard toward my truck. Bullets slammed into the siding. Glass shattered, alarms blared. I fumbled with the keys, dove in, and started the engine. Marcus jumped into the passenger seat, firing one last shot toward the house before I slammed it into reverse. Drive, he barked. We tore down the street, tires screaming, hearts pounding. Where do we go? I shouted. Somewhere they can't follow. A place with a signal jammer, he said, already on his phone. Reyes can get us into a safe house. He paused, his expression darkening as he listened. What? I demanded. He looked at me, jaw tight. She says Hale's team has eyes everywhere. He's not just after the drive anymore. Then what the hell does he want? Marcus hesitated. You, he said. I gripped the wheel tighter. Me. She says Hale thinks Jacob told you where the rest of the evidence is. The part not on the drive, my heart pounded. But I don't know anything. Marcus stared straight ahead. You'd better figure it out fast, he said. Because Hale won't stop until you do. We didn't stop driving until the city lights faded behind us. Marcus had the GPS running on a burner phone. leading us down a stretch of cracked highway into what looked like the middle of nowhere. The safe house turned out to be an old ranger cabin, half hidden by pine trees and thyme. The place smelled like dust and engine oil, but after what just happened, it felt like heaven. Marcus locked the door, checked the windows, and set up a signal jammer on the table. No cell, no GPS, no Wi-Fi, he said. We're ghosts for now. I dropped onto the couch, still shaking. You think they followed us? He shook his head. If they did, they'd be here already. I rubbed my face, trying to calm down, but the adrenaline wouldn't quit. Why me, Marcus? I didn't even know Jacob. Why would Hale think I've got his secrets? Marcus sat across from me, his expression serious, because Jacob wasn't working alone. The deeper I dig into these files, the clearer it gets. He had a partner inside Hale's company, someone who knew where every transaction went. I frowned. You think that partner's Emily? No, Marcus said slowly. I think it's someone closer to home. I felt a chill. Meaning what? He turned his laptop around to show me a new file he'd decrypted. On the screen was a list of encrypted emails. The sender's address made my stomach twist. Dwalker 1979. That's my email, I said, stunned. Yeah, Marcus replied. And according to the metadata, these emails were sent from your home IP address 6 months ago. I stood up. That's impossible. I know, he said quickly, but someone using your credentials did. I started pacing. You're saying someone used my identity to help Jacob? Looks that way. Which means they wanted you tied to this mess if things went south? My mind was spinning. But who would... My words stopped when I heard it. A faint beep, rhythmic, electronic. Marcus's head snapped toward the window. That's not from the jammer, he said, standing up. The beeping grew louder, faster. My chest tightened. Tell me that's not a tracker, Marcus said grimly. He lifted the couch cushion, revealing a small blinking device duct-taped underneath. They found us. Before I could respond, a pair of headlights cut through the trees outside, blinding us. Marcus grabbed his gun and shouted, Out the back, now! The next second, a round smashed through the window, followed by the deafening crack of a rifle. We dove to the floor as the cabin walls splintered apart, the air filling with dust and gunfire. The next few minutes were chaos. Bullets ripped through the walls like thunder, glass exploding around us as Marcus and I crawled toward the back door. Move, he shouted. I followed, ducking low as splinters rained down. The smell of gunpowder filled the air, thick and sharp. We made it to the back porch when a round tore through the wood beside my head, close enough that I felt the heat graze my ear. Marcus fired back twice, hitting someone in the tree line. A scream followed, then silence. Truck! I yelled. We sprinted toward his SUV, but before we reached it, the engine roared to life on its own. Headlights flared. Marcus skidded to a stop. They've got remote access, he barked. I barely had time to react before the truck lurched forward, slamming into a tree. Forget it, he yelled. Into the woods. We ran through the dark, branches whipping against our faces, our breath clouding the air. Somewhere behind us, voices shouted orders, flashlights slicing through the night. We kept running until the sound of the gunfire faded into the distance. Finally, we stopped near a small creek, both of us gasping for air. Marcus looked at me, sweat streaking down his face. That tracker wasn't planted tonight, he said between breaths. It's been with you longer, I frowned. What are you talking about? He grabbed my wrist suddenly, flipped it over, and pointed to my watch, the same one Emily had given me last Christmas. "This," he said. "It's not a normal watch." I stared at it, confused. "It's a tracker." I shook my head. "No, it's not. Emily bought this." Marcus's face went grim. "Exactly." My mind went blank. "You think she had to," he said quietly. "How else would they find you this fast twice?" My heart felt like it cracked open. No, she wouldn't do that. He looked at me, sympathy and suspicion fighting in his eyes. "Maybe she didn't mean to. Maybe she thought she was protecting you, but someone used her. Maybe Hale, maybe someone inside his circle." I ripped the watch off and hurled it into the creek, breathing hard. "Then who the hell can I trust, Marcus? Because right now it feels like I'm surrounded by ghosts." He didn't answer. Instead, he checked his gun, eyes locked on the woods ahead. "We keep moving," he said. "There's a safe route west through the ridge. Reyes can extract us if we make it to her signal point. And if we don't?" I asked. He gave me a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Then at least we die on our feet." Before I could respond, a flashlight beam cut through the trees, and a voice echoed through the darkness. "Drop the gun, Agent Rayburn." "Orders from the top." Marcus froze. That voice wasn't Hale's, it was familiar. It was Reyes. For a second I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. Reyes, the woman who warned us? Marcus turned slowly, keeping his gun half raised. "Agent Reyes?" he called out, voice shaking between disbelief and anger. Her silhouette stepped into the beam of her own flashlight. Face calm, badge glinting against her jacket. "Put it down, Marcus," she said, her voice firm but cold. "You don't know what you're doing." He laughed bitterly. "Funny, that's exactly what I was about to tell you." I watched them stare each other down, 1,000 questions spinning through my head. "You were helping us," I said finally. "You told us to run," she sighed, lowering her flashlight. "I told you to run so I could find out who had the drive. And now I have my answer." My stomach dropped. "You're working for Hale?" She didn't flinch. "Working with him," she corrected. "There's a difference. You think people like Hale go down just because the law says so? No, they survive by buying time, and I help sell it." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You disgust me. And you're naive," she shot back. "You think the Bureau hasn't known about Hale for years. We all know, but he's too valuable. He launders money for the same people who fund half this damn government. The Forrest was dead silent except for her words. "Jacob was supposed to disappear quietly," she continued. "Then your wife panicked, and everything went to hell. Hale wants this cleaned up before anyone starts digging again." I felt the blood drain from my face. "And what about me?" She turned her gaze on me. You were never supposed to be part of this, but now you are. And Hale doesn't like loose ends." Marcus moved in front of me, gun aimed squarely at her chest. "You're not taking him," he said. Reyes gave a sad little smile. "You still don't get it." I already did. Before I could process what she meant, headlights flooded the clearing from behind her. Black SUVs rolled in, their engines low and predatory. Men in suits stepped out, Hale's men, and between them, in a perfectly pressed coat and calm smile, was Victor Hale himself. Seeing him in person made my skin crawl. He looked exactly like he did on TV. Charming, polished, dangerous. "Mr. Walker," he said smoothly, like we were meeting at a charity gala instead of a midnight ambush. "You've caused me quite a bit of trouble." I wanted to speak, to tell him to go to hell, but my throat locked. He walked closer, hands in his pockets. "You have something I need," he said. "Give it to me, and maybe I'll let your wife live long enough to thank you." I glanced at Marcus, and in that moment, we both knew we weren't leaving this forest unless one of us stopped him first. Hale's men fanned out fast, their movements precise, professional, like they'd done this 100 times before. Marcus gripped his gun tighter, eyes darting between them, searching for a weak spot. Hale walked toward us with the kind of confidence that made the air feel thinner. "No need for this to get ugly," he said calmly. "Just hand over the drive." I could feel Marcus's tension rising beside me. "You kill people in their homes, burn their lives down, and then talk about keeping things civil." Marcus spat. Hale gave him a patient smile. "You of all people should know. Agent Rayburn, civility is just controlled violence." My mind was spinning. I could feel the flash drive pressed against my thigh in my pocket, like a ticking bomb. "You're not getting it," I said, forcing the words out. "Not after what you did to Jacob. Not after what you've done to Emily." He raised an eyebrow, like he found my anger amusing. "Your wife was a complication," he said, "but she was loyal enough in the end." The world tilted. "What do you mean, loyal?" He smirked. "Didn't she tell you? She called me the night before the shooting. She was going to bring the drive to me herself, until Jacob decided to grow a conscience." My stomach dropped. I looked at Marcus, who shook his head, mouthing, "Don't listen." But Hale kept talking, his voice low, almost gentle. "She wanted to protect you, Dan. She begged me to let you walk away. That's why I let her live. For now." My pulse roared in my ears. "You're lying, am I?" he said, and pulled something from his coat pocket, a small black phone. He tapped the screen and played an audio clip. Emily's voice filled the air, shaking, desperate. "Please, Victor, I'll get it back. Just don't hurt him. Don't hurt Dan." I felt my legs go weak. Marcus grabbed my arm, whispering, "He's playing you." But I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The man in front of me had turned my whole life into a game, and I was losing. Hale slid the phone away, smiling faintly. "You have 30 seconds to decide," he said. "Give me the drive, and I'll make sure she walks out of that jail cell alive." "You don't make deals," Marcus snapped. "Or you bury people." Hale's eyes darkened. "You're right." He snapped his fingers, and 2 of his men raised their weapons. The world slowed down. The gleam of metal, the sound of safeties clicking off, the faint rustle of pine needles in the cold air. Marcus shoved me behind him just as the first shot rang out. The muzzle flash lit the trees like lightning, and I saw Hale turn away calmly, like the ending was already written. But then another sound cut through the chaos, one that didn't come from us or his men. It was a single sharp crack from deeper in the woods, and Hale's body jerked forward. Someone had just shot him. The gunfire stopped as fast as it started. For a second, no one moved, not even Hale's men. Victor Hale staggered back, a look of pure disbelief spreading across his face as blood bloomed through his white shirt. His legs buckled and he hit the ground hard. The forest went silent except for the echo of that one shot fading into the trees. Marcus grabbed my arm. "Stay down," he hissed, scanning the ridgeline. I could barely think. Hale, the man who'd burned my life to ashes, was lying 10 feet away, gasping for air. His men were shouting into radios, panicking for the first time. Where the hell did that come from? One yelled. Marcus crouched behind a fallen log, peering through his scope. "Sniper," he muttered. "Professional. 1 shot, 1 kill. But who?" I asked, voice shaking. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. A second later, another round cracked through the air, not at Hale's men this time, but straight into one of their SUVs. The vehicle exploded, flames licking up through the trees. Chaos erupted. Hale's men scattered, some firing blindly into the darkness, others dragging Hale's limp body toward cover. Marcus grabbed my shoulder. "We move now!" We ran downhill, ducking branches, gunfire echoing behind us. My chest burned, lungs screaming for air. Every step felt heavier than the last. We stopped by an old fence line hiding behind rusted metal. I looked back toward the clearing. Flames flickered, shadows darted, but whoever was firing was still out there unseen. "This doesn't make sense," I said, panting. "Why would anyone help us?" Marcus reloaded, jaw tight. "Not helping us," he said. "Helping themselves." He started checking the tree line again, but before he could finish, a faint buzz came from my jacket pocket. I pulled out my phone. No signal, yet somehow a video file was downloading. Marcus saw it too. "Don't," he warned, but I already hit play. The screen flickered, static at first. Then an image came into focus. A dark room. A single light hanging overhead. Emily. She looked pale, exhausted, sitting in a metal chair. A voice behind the camera said, "It's done. Hale's finished. Time for phase 2. My heart stopped. The voice wasn't malevolent or threatening. It was calm, familiar. It was Chris. "He's alive." I breathed. Marcus leaned over, his expression hardening. "Looks like it. And he's running the show now." The video continued. Emily looked up straight into the lens, her voice trembling. "Dan, if you're watching this, you need to run." "It's not over." Then the screen went black. For a long moment, all I could hear was the crackle of distant fire and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Hale might have been dead, but the game wasn't over, and now someone else had taken his place. For a long time after that video ended, I just stared at the dark screen, trying to breathe. The forest smelled like smoke and gunpowder. Hale's men had scattered, and the night felt heavier than ever. Marcus was the first to move. "If Chris is alive, that means everything's upside down," he said quietly. "He's the one who set this up. Hale's death, the ambush, your wife's deal, all of it." I shook my head, still processing. "But why?" "He helped me. He played you," Marcus cut in, sharp and cold. "He used you to flush Hale out. You were the bait." My stomach turned. I thought back to that diner, the nervous tone, the flash drive he risked giving me. Every move suddenly felt scripted. So what? He wanted Hale dead? "No," Marcus said. "He wanted his throne." The words hung in the air like fog. I stared at the distant glow of fire through the trees, realizing what that meant. Chris had been in deep with Hale all along, maybe even deeper than Jacob. And now that Hale was gone, there was only one person, standing between him and complete control. Me. Marcus grabbed his radio, trying to raise any bureau contact who'd still listen. "This is Agent Rayburn. Hale's down, situation compromised. New hostile in play," but before he could finish, static burst through the channel, followed by a low, distorted voice. "Agent Rayburn," it said. "Always cleaning up someone else's mess." Marcus froze. "Chris," he whispered. The voice chuckled. "You two are predictable. Still running, still hoping there's a way out. But the truth? There never was." I grabbed the radio. "Where's Emily?" Silence. Then calmly Chris said, "She made her choice. Now it's your turn." The line went dead. I looked at Marcus, anger and fear mixing in my chest. "We find him tonight." He didn't argue. We moved through the woods toward the highway, where Marcus had stashed an emergency car. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the keys. "He's not just going after you," Marcus said, climbing in. "He's going to wipe every trace of Hale's empire, clean, and anyone who knows about meaning us," I muttered. He nodded. "Meaning Emily, too, if she's still alive." The tires screeched as we hit the road, racing toward the coordinates hidden in the video file's metadata, an old industrial site outside the city. It was nearly dawn when we arrived. The place looked abandoned. Broken windows, rusted steel, silence. But then I saw it, light flickering in one of the upper floors. And standing in the window, barely visible against the glow, was a silhouette I'd know anywhere. Emily alive, but she wasn't alone. Someone stood beside her, Chris, and she was holding his hand. My heart stopped when I saw her. That silhouette in the window, Emily alive, standing next to the man who'd just turned my world upside down. Marcus grabbed my arm before I could charge in. "Dan, think," he hissed. "If she's with him, it's not by accident." But I wasn't listening. Every instinct in me screamed to see her, to hear her voice, to make her explain why she was standing beside the man who killed Hale and made me his pawn. We circled around to the back of the building, slipping through a broken door. The place smelled like rust and mold, the faint hum of a generator somewhere above. My boots crunched on glass as we crept up the metal staircase, the old structure groaning under our weight. Marcus held his gun ready, eyes scanning every corner. When we reached the second floor, voices echoed through the hallway, hers and his. I edged closer until I could make out the words. Emily sounded desperate. "You promised no one would get hurt," she was saying. Chris's reply was calm, cold. "I promised you wouldn't get hurt." Everyone else was expendable. My blood boiled. I stepped out from the shadows, my voice echoing down the hall. "Then what am I, Chris? The punchline?" Both of them spun around. For a split second, Emily looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Dan," she whispered, tears welling up. Chris just smiled, that same fake calm he'd worn at the diner. "You're right on time." Marcus moved in behind me, gun raised. "Hands up, Reed." Chris chuckled, unfazed. "You still think this is about money or files? Hale was a middleman. The real business starts now." I stepped closer, ignoring the weapon in his hand. "What did you do to her?" I asked. Emily shook her head. "Dan, please. You don't understand." "Then make me," I said. "Start with why you're holding his hand." Her lip trembled. "Because if I don't, we both die." She turned to me, eyes pleading. "Jacob didn't just steal Hale's money. He stole data, names, accounts, everything. People who would kill to keep those secrets buried. Chris has them now, and they want him dead." Marcus frowned. "So what's phase 2? Chris smirked. "Insurance. I leaked Hale's files to every news outlet in the country. By morning, half of DC will burn trying to bury the fallout. Meanwhile, I walk away clean." "You're insane," Marcus said. Chris's smile faded. "No, Agent, I'm free." He raised his gun and fired before Marcus could react. The shot rang out and Marcus dropped to his knees, clutching his chest. "No!" I screamed, diving for him. Emily cried out too, but Chris grabbed her arm and yanked her back toward the exit. I barely heard her voice through the ringing in my ears. "Dan, run!" Then they were gone, and Marcus lay bleeding in my arms, whispering just one thing before the light left his eyes: "Don't let him win." The night felt endless. I sat there on the cold concrete floor, Marcus's blood drying on my hands, the echo of that gunshot ringing through my head like a bell that wouldn't stop. He died trying to save a man who didn't know who to trust anymore. I wanted to break something, scream, burn the whole world down, but I didn't have that luxury. Chris still had Emily, and I still had a promise to keep. I found Marcus's phone on the ground, cracked but working. The last GPS ping showed a route heading toward the harbor district. Same place. Hale's shipments used to move through. It figured Chris would end this where it all started. I drove like a madman, every red light a blur, my mind looping through every moment since this began. Jacob's body, the lies, the threats, the fear. By the time I reached the docks, dawn was breaking. painting the sky in bruised colors. The air smelled like salt and gasoline. I spotted them near a warehouse. Emily standing by the water. Chris holding a gun, a small bag slung over his shoulder. I walked up slow, hands out, no weapon. "Let her go, Chris," I called. He turned, that smug smirk plastered on his face. "Dan Walker, the loyal husband. You're late. You don't need her," I said. "You've already won," he laughed. "Won? You think I wanted this circus?" "I just wanted a way out. Hale, the feds, the syndicate, they all used me. Now it's my turn." "You killed Marcus," I said quietly. He shrugged. "He got in the way." That's when Emily spoke, her voice trembling but steady. "Chris, stop, please, it's over." He turned the gun on her. "You don't get to tell me when it's over." "Neither do you," I said, and hit the remote in my pocket. The detonator, Marcus had rigged it in his final moments, tied to the flash drive's tracker. The moment I'd plugged it into my car earlier, it started logging every device connected to Chris's network. Now it was about to shut him down for good. Chris's phone beeped in his pocket. He looked down just as the warehouse behind him erupted in a wave of fire and light. The blast threw him off his feet, his gun skittering into the water. I ran to Emily, pulling her behind cover as debris rained down. She clung to me, sobbing, shaking uncontrollably. When the smoke cleared, Chris was gone. Swallowed by the flames or the sea, I couldn't tell. The sirens came soon after, cops, feds, reporters, too late as always. Emily and I just stood there, broken but alive, watching the sun rise over the harbor. For the first time in forever, it felt like the world had stopped spinning. Later, when they asked me what really happened, I told them the truth, that good men die trying to fix broken ones, and that some secrets should stay buried. Emily never went back to jail. The files Marcus saved cleared her name, and Hale's empire crumbled overnight. But at night, when it's quiet and I close my eyes, I still hear Marcus's voice, "Don't let him win." And I like to think I didn't, because sometimes victory isn't about surviving the storm. It's about walking out of it with your soul still intact.